you and I can go down a list of people we've met today, and I bet you we have both encountered someone from another culture, another country today, right?
Probably.
Probably, and we have in the grocery stores. And like today, I ended up getting dinner from a Japanese restaurant, and you could tell they were all Japanese, right? And
Hmm.
so I encountered those people. Those are opportunities to learn instead of saying you have an accent. And so for those of you who are culturally curious, from an immigrant's point of view, let me tell you something that I, as an immigrant, don't like. And I know I am speaking for a lot of immigrants here in the United States. This is what we don't like. So, one of the things I always get is, hey, you have an accent. Where are you from? Right? That is a great, legit question. Like, it sounds right, okay, to the person who is culturally curious and trying to find. But that is not the conversation you want to bring up first, because this is what I hear as an immigrant. When you say I have an accent, this is what I hear. I hear you say, oh, you're not from here. You are not part of us.
Right.
Right. And I know people mean well when they ask that question. They are not thinking, oh, I am putting you away from us. But as an immigrant who has been living in this country for the last 21 years, this is my entire adult life has been in this country. I feel so much a part of it, right? But there's also a part of me that is torn between my home country, Ghana, and this country, because I'm not from here. But then I've been gone so long from my home country that when I visit, I feel like a visitor, right? So I'm in this weird space between where I'm from and where I live and where I've made my home and raised a family, right? And so when someone asks me that question, you have an accent, where are you from? I am hearing, oh, you don't belong here, or you are not part of me.
So,
Right.
and I have a question on that. What would be a what would be a more comfortable question for you in that? If somebody was just curious as to where you're from,
Yeah.
would it be just would you prefer if it would just say, "Oh, where are you from?" Or
Yeah.
would
Just
you?
tell me where you're from. Don't
Right.
act don't add the you have an accent.
Right.
I know I have an accent. I
I was
know
gonna say it's not like it's not news. It's not like
it's like flash news. I
it's
have an
some
accent. Right.
revelation that like hey, I gotta say something. I don't know if it's like they're talking like you have
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
booger in your
Yeah.
nose. Like,
Right.
hey, I
Like
gotta tell you something.
you have an accent.
Well, you should just be like super surprised to be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right?
You have
Like
an accent.
I've
Where are
asked
you
people
from?
have asked me the question, right? And I felt like I needed to be sarcastic. And I've actually done that before. Like someone said, you have an accent, where are you from? And I said, I'm from America.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, seriously, where are you from? I'm like, I'm American. I have an American passport. I can tell you I'm an American anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm playing that off. I know exactly what they mean. So instead of saying you have an accent, don't say the obvious. We know I have an accent. You don't have to tell me that I don't sound like Chad. Chad doesn't sound like me. I know. Chad has an American accent. So you have an accent too, right? And I
What?
have an
What?
accent too.
What? I have an accent.
Yeah, because an accent is a representation of it's how you interpret language,
Hmm.
right? And so how you speak your English is not what it's not how the British speak their English. So you have an American accent. I have a Ghanaian accent. I have whatever, right? And so I think the best question is, where are you from? Just ask me that. I
Yeah.
will tell you where I'm from, right? And I also want the conversation to go beyond, if there is time, to go beyond where are you from, find out about who I am. And I think the best way to connect with someone from another culture is to find similarities, right? So I look like a middle-aged woman. Oh, I think I do, right? And so there's a possibility that maybe I have a family, or, I have some job or something. So you kind of want to find that commonality between you and that person, right?
Right.
So let's share, like Chad, it loves theater and drama, right?
Right.
I love theater and drama too. And I think that's where you and I connected in the arts,
Absolutely. Yeah. That
right?
was literally how we met.
And so we found that common ground. And before this recording, I was telling you that I feel like you and I have gone through, I think we do cultural curiosity very well,
I agree.
especially you, and I give you credit for that. And
Thank you.
I feel like even in our friendship, we started off as a working relationship,
Mhm.
but our cultures and our backgrounds didn't stop us from becoming friends even outside of the work we do together, right?
Right. Agreed.
And there's been times when you didn't know something and you asked, what is this? Or like the other day on our recording, we talked about kele wele, which is the plantains versus, jollof rice or whatever, right? And
Mhm.
and you were curious enough to know and to want to know. I also give you credit because then you did own the other movies and did movies from different countries. You did like one from India, you did one from Ghana, and I give you credit because you were able to embrace that culture, put yourself in their place, and see what the impact and the purpose of that story was, or the stories that
Right.
had been turned into movies were, and the impact they made. That is cultural curiosity. You don't even have to, again, you don't have to travel. On Netflix, there are all these movies. They're African
Yeah.
movies, they're Asian movies, right? Watch something other than an American movie because that is a good way to learn about a culture. And that is why I loved what you did with Onbia the movies, because what you did was cultural curiosity in its own form through film, right?
Thank you.
And
Yeah, and
so,
that was, thank
yeah,
you.
go
That
ahead.
that
Go
was
ahead.
the goal. So
Yeah,
I have a question for you. Kind of to frame cultural curiosity and what Americans probably need. Not all Americans, but maybe
right.
might open up somebody's mind a little bit.
Yeah.
So in Ghana,
Hmm.
what is the or what is a general consensus, or is there a general stereotype of to the image of an American from somebody who is not, maybe not, who's either never been to America, or B, hasn't spent a lot of time in America but has,
Hmm.
like, sees the news. So like
Yeah.
in Ghana, what would be like a an image in the mind of somebody from Ghana of an American?
So let me tell you my mind before I came into the country. I think that you would speak for a lot of people in
Hmm.
Ghana. We always thought Americans were rich or are rich, right? I never
Right.
associated America with poverty, because the America we see are the Americans who come to our rescue with food and money, like USAID and
Hmm.
World Bank people and all these people coming in to rescue us, right? So, and then you watch the movies, and it's the skyscrapers and the nice cars, and everything is nice. You don't see the poverty, you don't see the injustices, you don't see all the other things that you get to know, the racism and all of that, when you eventually come into the country. So the perception, at least for me before coming in, was that America was a place you go to make it. You
Right.
know, that was the first one. We also felt that Americans were very casual and
Right.
casual in so many ways. So, like, you would read, and our educational system was more British, based on colonialism and all of that. But
Right.
so, British English, you cannot write a formal letter with, what do you call those? A conjunction. Like, instead of saying they are, you can say they apostrophe re.
Right.
Like Americans who use that in formal writing, we were taught you cannot do that in formal writing,
And
right?
and I even noticed this is a fun thing too. In
Yeah,
when Amma and I text, you can even
yeah.
see that because Amma's very formal when she texts me. She's like, "Hey Chad, how are you? I hope you're well." A whole like greeting,
Yes, it's a
and
letter.
then we'll talk. Whereas I'm just, and I feel bad because sometimes I'm just like, "Hey, yeah, that's cool." Like like very very American, and that
Yeah,
very
Americans are very casual. Yeah, very,
quiet.
very casual.
But and some of you listening may have listened to that image of what Amma had
Mhm.
of an American. And you might be thinking, "Oh, that's not me. I'm not rich," or "Oh,
Yeah,
that's not me. I'm not a casual person. I'm very, I'm very formal. I'm
yeah,
very proper. I speak in this very way." But or you
yeah,
might be thinking, "I'm not a part of that socioeconomic demographic," or whatever. And exactly, that's the point I was trying to make. Is
yeah,
that uh, so you would say to this other culture, well, no, that's not a necessary a representation of me as a person. So
right.
you should also be curious enough, you being the viewers or listeners, curious enough to not just assume. Um, you should be curious enough to challenge your previous positions
Yeah,
about what someone from Ghana or India or any other culture, who they are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Yeah.
and I think that that was kind of the point of that little exercise.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
the media hasn't served us well either, not just
sure.
cultures around the country, but for here as well, because you are watching what the media is showing, right? And
Right.
what the movies are showing and all of that, and it's what is portrayed. So a lot of people, like I would speak English, and I would hear people say, "Oh, you speak English very well. How did you learn to speak English?" And I would say something along the lines of, I have been speaking English my entire life,
Yeah, I
maybe
was
with
gonna
an
say.
accent different from yours, but English is not a second language to me. The funniest thing is that when I speak my own language, I would include English words because then I'm struggling with my own language, right? And so
Mhm.
there is this perception that, oh, you're African, you are not highly educated because you didn't have this, you didn't have that. And I'm like, no, I really grew up middle income, and I look at some people here and I'm thinking, man, my upbringing was better, right? To a degree, not that I'm bragging, but there's this perception that when you're from Africa, you're poor or you're ignorant, or that because you're from another country that you want, because you have an accent, you're not intelligent enough. And I just want to make that, since I have the platform, I'm going to say it, but
Yeah,
intelligence, accent has nothing to do with intelligence, right? Could
absolutely.
be
And
completely
and this is
eloquent and not
something,
be intelligent.
and this is something I've been guilty of.
Yeah,
Not with Ghanaian culture, but
yeah.
in America, if you want to, in like the media, if the media wants to portray someone as stupid,
Mhm.
what accent do they give them? You
I'm
know,
not gonna say yeah. I know.
Southern. They give them a thick Southern accent, and
I
that's
was trying not to
really
get in
not
trouble with that one.
but you're right. But that it's true. Like you,
Yeah,
the perception is
yeah,
that there is a preconceived notion of like, oh, you have a thick Southern accent, so let's make fun of that, and
yeah,
let's make fun of you for
yeah,
being from the South. And I say I've been guilty of that, and that that is something that the media
yeah,
has.
yeah,
I've consumed media that
yeah.
has perpetuated that, and I've had to check myself by being like,
Mhm.
no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
And I've
but
had
it,
people talk about poverty in Africa too, because when you watch like all these charities trying to raise funds for Africa, what do you see on TV, right? You see the babe, the boy or the little girl with the distended stomach and the flies jumping all over them. And
right,
you're like, 5 cents a day will feed this hungry child in Africa, right?
mhm,
Whereas there are kids in Africa who are coming to America for vacation. How are they affording that, right? So it's the stereotype, and I tell people that, but they're like, yeah, but that's what the media shows. And I say, yeah, but think about why the media is showing that. They're showing that because they need to raise funds. If I
yeah,
come to you raising funds, I'm not coming to show you the best part of Africa. I'm going to show you the poor part because I need you to give me your money. So I'm not saying there is not a need. There is a need. There is war, but it's not all of Africa. I grew up in Africa and I'd never experienced war. Is there war in Africa? Yes, there is war in Africa. And so is other parts of the world too, right? And so, yes, there is an element of truth, but that does not represent all of us, like what you were saying.
right, and exactly, and like even with what we were saying with like being from the South, like
Mm,
you know from Virginia, the South, there are preconceived notions again
mm,
based on accents and based on where you live, and it's not really fair. Like there was a college professor that I knew who is very respected in academia, but they
mhm.
have a very thick Southern accent, so
Yeah.
they had to really, and they had a thick Southern accent and were female. So in the world of higher ed, they had a
Mm,
lot of people judging them,
yeah.
and they had a lot of like hurdles they had to jump through to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like not only do people need to be respected, I think is the moral of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and a way to that respect could be cultural curiosity.
Yeah.
Somebody has a Southern accent doesn't make them stupid.
Hmm.
Somebody's from Africa doesn't make any negative stereotype necessarily true about them. And I
Right.
think you create that cultural curiosity, and cultivate that cultural curiosity. Hopefully, you can bridge that gap to eliminating negative, harmful stereotypes.
Exactly. And become culturally intelligent, right? And
Exactly.
so we also live in a world now where we cannot afford not to be culturally intelligent or culturally
Right.
curious, right? And let me tell you why. Our world have become, the world has become closer than we think due to technology.
Right.
And your chances of working with someone from another culture, meeting on Zoom or WebEx or whatever, it's higher now because companies are outsourcing companies. And even when you don't want to deal with anyone, let's say you decide that, okay, I live in a bubble and you have a problem with your cell phone and you call your cell phone company, you're probably talking to someone in India or another part of the world, right? And so, whether we like it or not, we have to engage with cultures that are different from our own. And I think that's why our work is so important, what we do here at Culture Encounters, because our world is changing. We cannot live in a bubble anymore. The
You can't.
borders are open, right? And there are a lot of immigrants coming in. There are a lot of refugees coming in, and these are well-meaning people. We do contribute. I have been in this country with my family for so many years, and we have contributed meaningfully to this country. My brother has served in the military. I have worked here. I have worked as a teacher. I have worked as a business owner. I work as a founder of a nonprofit. My husband works. We all contribute meaningfully. So America is our home. It's just not a home for a select few. It's our home now. And that we have to relate to each other, whether we like it or not. We need to get to know each other.
Absolutely. That's an amazing, amazing way to put that. And I agree. Like we don't have a choice. You're either going to willingly
Yeah,
be culturally curious and culturally intelligent, or it's going to have to happen.
yeah,
To adapt. Right. For
yeah.
example, I need to learn more Spanish because I was just looking online. I think last year, I could be wrong. Someone please correct me if I am. Last year, the number one musical artist on Spotify. Do you know
Hmm.
who it was?
No.
Take a guess. Bad Bunny. Bad
Wow.
Bunny, the from Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
The Latin hip hop artist,
yeah.
number one streaming artist on Spotify.
That is
That's
amazing. I love
awesome.
it.
I'm not a
That's
big fan
awesome.
of hip hop, but that is so cool.
Yeah.
That
So let me talking about artists. My kids
yeah.
introduced me to a gentleman from Canada, Connor Price. And I don't know him at all, but my kids are all
Mhm.
into Connor Price. And so they introduced me to Connor Price. And Connor Price did a project called Spin the Globe. And he literally takes a globe, he spins it, and then points at whatever country. And
Mhm.
he's a hip hop artist. And so he
Mhm.
does collaboration with someone from whatever country he ends
That's
on.
cool.
I think it is fabulous.
That
It
is
is
really
so
cool.
cool. Connor
Connor
Price,
Price,
if
if you're
you're listening,
listening,
we need to work with you.
yeah,
I've sent you
Connor
DMs.
Price, hit us up. We got to
It is,
talk. We got
but
to do
that is
a.
so cool that he is connecting his art, his
Mhm.
form of expression with different cultures around the world. I just thought that was neat. I really
That
love
is
that.
so cool.
Yeah,
That is amazing. That's
yeah,
gonna be my
yeah,
Google
yeah.
search tonight. Will be Connor Price.
Connor
That's my
Price
homework
in
for
the
all of you
globe.
guys. That
Yeah,
is my homework for all of you guys, and I want you in the chat, or not the chat, in the comment section.
yeah,
I want you to Google something from
mhm,
another culture,
yeah.
and I want you to tell me what it is you Googled. I want to
Oh, that'd
learn.
be cool.
We're gonna
Yeah,
learn together. Whether
yeah.
y'all like it or not, you're gonna learn stuff. That's what I tell my students all the time. I'm like, you're gonna learn and you're gonna like it. Uh, and
All right,
they to
Mr.
which
Chat.
yeah, which leads to a collective groan and eye rolling. But and we
Yeah.
were talking about music. People were almost in America. People were kind of almost tricked into cultural intelligence without realizing it. We were talking about this off air.
Mhm,
Rich, greedy capitalists
mhm.
were not saying all capitalism is bad,
Yeah.
saying that these specific capitalists were.
Mhm,
Back in the 50s, used artists like Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and Bill Haley and the Comets and
mhm,
all of these different early seminal rock and roll artists to, they were tools of appropriation. They took
mhm.
music from Black culture, specifically to, like, Delta blues and Chicago blues,
Yeah.
and put a different label on it so they
Mm.
could sell it to middle class white kids.
Yeah.
Um, and but the music itself was inspired and specifically covered
Mm-hmm.
these very talented, wonderful artists of color.
Right.
So these middle aged white kids are consuming a culture that is different than theirs,
Mm-hmm.
based on this appropriation without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And then later on, they, eventually, like, not sometimes later on, sometimes at the same time, contemporary
Mm-hmm.
life, you're
Mm-hmm.
listening, they, eventually you see a platform for Chuck Berry and uh, Otis Redding and Fats Domino and Little Richard and all of these just super ridiculously absurdly talented artists
Mm-hmm.
that maybe um, they were basically almost tricked into it was a unintended consequence of appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you do possess, whether you want to or not. I
Mm-hmm.
have to believe that we as a people possess the ability to be culturally
Mm-hmm.
curious.
Yeah.
You just gotta, we just all gotta get out of our own way.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And the truth is, whether we like it or not, like I said before, we are engaging with people. I mean, think about the grocery store, the restaurants, all
Mhm.
everywhere you go. And I'm telling you, like, if you really pay attention to even what you've done today and places you've been, you've encountered someone from another culture. We
Right.
all do on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, we don't pay attention enough and are not curious enough to say this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow. And I think that the way forward in the world we live in is that we need to learn and grow with each other and from each other. And I think that is really important. So, yeah, that's all I got for you today. But I think that, we all need to be culturally curious. I think we've said it, we cannot say it enough. And
Absolutely.
go out there and pay attention to the world around you because it's beautiful
It
when you
is.
get to meet people and get to know people outside of your circle. Step out a little bit. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least, you'll have tried something new, and there's
Yeah.
never anything wrong with that. And
Exactly.
at the best, you might end up meeting a lifelong friend. You might end up learning something new that you take with you. You might find a new hobby that you really enjoy.
Right.
So yeah, for sure. I
And
think
you
going
find
to
all
life,
the things you have in common. You'll be amazed at things
yeah,
we have in common. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time today,
Yeah.
Amma. We will again. This will be part one and part two. So this is part two of the video.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll probably cut this part out as well.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time today, Amma. We will be back next week with another podcast.
Yeah.
Uh,
And some
thank
great conversations to come. I
Yes,
think this was very insightful, and I feel like
I
we need
agree.
to have these conversations,
I agree. I think the need is there, and
for
just
sure.
humanity, for humanity to be the best it can be,
Yeah.
um, it needs to embrace all elements of itself. So, all right. Well,
Exactly.
thank you very much for being with us today, and have
You're
a
welcome.
wonderful evening.
Yes, you too, Chad. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you.